Chapter 1 of Mary Marston. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Mary Marston by George MacDonald. Chapter 1. The Shop. It was an evening early in May. The sun was low, and the street was mottled with the shadows of its paving stones, smooth enough, but far from evenly set. The sky was clear, except for a few clouds in the west, hardly visible in the dazzle of the huge light, which lay among them like liquid that has broken its vessel, and was pouring over the fragments. The street was almost empty, and the air was chill. The spring was busy, and the summer was at hand, but the wind was blowing from the north. The street was not a common one. There was interest, that is, feature, in the shadowy front of almost each of its old houses. Not a few of them wore, indeed, something like a human expression, the look of having both known and suffered. From many a porch and many a latticed oriel, a long shadow stretched eastward, like a death flag streaming in a wind unfelt of the body, or a fluttering leaf, ready to yield and flit away, and add one more to the mound of blackness gathering on the horizon's edge. It was the main street of an old country town, dwindled by the rise of larger and more prosperous places, but holding and exercising a charm none of them would ever gain. Some of the oldest of its houses, most of them with more than one projecting story, stood about the middle of the street. The central and oldest of these was a draper's shop. The windows of the ground floor encroached a little on the pavement, to which they descended very close, for the floor of the shop was lower than the street. But although they had glass on three oriel sides, they were little used for the advertising of the stores within. A few ribbons and gay handkerchiefs, mostly of cotton for the eyes of the country people on market days, formed the chief part of their humble show. The door was wide and very low. The upper half of it was glass, old and bottle-coloured, and its threshold was a deep step down into the shop. As a place for purchases, it might not to some eyes look promising, but both the ladies and the housekeepers of Testbridge knew that rarely could they do better in London itself than at the shop of Turnbull and Marston, where the variety, quality, or price was the point in consideration. And whatever the first impression concerning it, the moment the eyes of a stranger began to grow accustomed to its gloom, the evident size and plenitude of the shop might well suggest a large hope. It was low, indeed, and the walls could therefore accommodate few shelves, but the ceiling, therefore, was so near as to be itself available for stowage by means of well-contrived slides and shelves attached to the great beams crossing it in several directions. During the shop day, many an article, light as lace and heavy as broadcloth, was taken from overhead to lay upon the counter. The shop had a special reputation for all kinds of linen goods, from cambric handkerchiefs to towels, and from table napkins to sheets, but almost everything was to be found in it, from Manchester moleskins for the navy's trousers to Genoa velvet for the dowager's gown, and from Horrocks prints to Lyons silks. It had been enlarged at the back by building beyond the original plan, and that part of it was a little higher and a little better lighted than the front, but the whole place was still dark enough to have awaked the envy of any swindling London shopkeeper. Its owners, however, had so long enjoyed the confidence of the neighbourhood that faith readily took the place of sight with their customers, so far at least as quality was concerned, and seldom, except in a question of colour or shade, was an article carried to the door to be confronted with the day. It had been just such a shop, untouched of even legendary change, as far back as the memory of the sexton reached, and he, because of his age and his occupation, was the chief authority in the local history of the place. As on this evening there were few people in the street, so were there few in the shop, and it was on the point of being closed. They were not particular there to a good many minutes either way. Behind the counter on the left hand stood a youth of about 20, young George Turnbull, the son of a principal partner, occupied in leisurely folding and putting aside a number of things he had been showing to a farmer's wife who was just gone. He was an ordinary-looking lad,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?